Hi guys, welcome to Simple Ground. Today we are going to be doing just a short little video about the hips and how we can start to get some more mobility and stability within the hips. So feel free to follow along. If at any point you feel pain or discomfort that is unbearable, then just please stop, take a break, and maybe come back and try it again later. Alright, so we are going to start with a little bit of breath, just to center, and some engagement of the pelvic floor. So close your eyes. Start to take an inhale in through the nose. Exhale, open mouth. Inhale. And exhale. One more, just like that. On this next inhale, you're going to start to imagine like the pelvic floor is going up an elevator, and it gets tighter and tighter, up, up, up on the inhale. And then as you exhale and release, the pelvic floor relaxes nice and slow, like it's taking that slow elevator ride down. So inhale, feel that contraction of the pelvic floor all the way to the top. Exhale, a slow release of that pelvic floor. The muscles relax. Good. Inhale, contract the muscles. Exhale, a slow release. Using that breath with the pelvic floor, make it nice and smooth. Exhale, relax it nice and slow till it's fully relaxed. Two more. Inhale. Exhale. Good. Last one. Inhale. Feel that pelvic floor. Exhale. And as you're sitting here, which you could be doing sitting in a chair as well, take notice of your hips. How do your hips feel in this moment? Do they feel okay? Do they feel like they give you some trouble sometimes? Do you feel like you are aware of your hips and how they move? Or maybe there could be some extra loving for the hips. So today a lot of our movements are going to be done standing. If it's uncomfortable or really difficult to find these movements standing, you can feel free to sit in a chair, or you could even do these movements lying down on your back, making this the best experience for you today. But we're gonna find standing position if you're with me. Go ahead and kick the feet out a couple times. See where they land, where your most natural position is. And then just start to feel around your hips, your pelvic region. Noticing anything that stands out. I'm going to point out your hip crest so you can feel these curved parts coming along the side of your body from the hips. You can feel this bony landmark sticking out front. And then you can also feel this hip crest, this hip crease from the legs to the hips. Good. And then start to imagine your hips like your pelvic bowl. And your bowl is full of water. And maybe your pelvic bowl is supporting your water really well without any water spilling out. Or maybe you have some water spilling out front, so like you have a tilt to your hips forward. Maybe your hips tilt backwards, or maybe they go from side to side, like you have a hip hike. So notice if your water is spilling out in any direction. And let this be your starting point, your guide for how things start to progress throughout this practice. And so just make a quick mental note of how your pelvis is feeling, how the hips are feeling from right to left. And we'll go ahead and get started with some of the movements. So we're gonna come into arch and flatten first, and I'm just gonna turn to the side so that you can see me. So with this movement, I like to place one hand on my front and one hand on my back. You could place your hands on your hips, or you could just let them rest by your side. Totally up to you, but I like to be able to feel how my pelvis is moving and what's going on. So from here, let's start with the arch first. All of these movements are going to initiate from the hips and then work its way up and down the rest of the body. So coming into your arch, you're going to start to press your tailbone backwards. And as you do this, the hips start to spill forward. You can feel that tilt going towards your toes. And then come on back to neutral with the hips, the spine follows. Tilt it forward, the hips move, and as you do that, you feel this little arch come into your low back, and then you can come on back. Again, tilt the pelvis forward, coming into that arch, and you feel the muscles along the spine start to get a little bit tighter, a little bit shorter as you're in that arch. And then the hips initiate coming back to neutral, and the rest of the spine comes back to neutral with it as well. Again, last time, tilt coming into that arch. Easy, does it nice and slow. Come on back. Okay, now feel, did that make a difference in how your water is sitting in your imaginary water bowl? And let's come into the opposite direction, coming into that flatten. So still standing here. This time we're going to tuck our tailbone. So it's bringing our pelvis backwards, that tilt, and then bring the pelvis back to neutral. Again, tilt it, tuck the tailbone. And here you're gonna feel the belly muscles contract, get a little bit tighter. And then pelvis comes back, spine comes back. Again, tilt. You can feel the spine get a little bit longer, a little bit more exposed. Bring the pelvis back. One more time. Tilt. Backwards. Relax. So now as you're here, maybe you've found a more neutral spot between the front and back side of your pelvis. Or maybe you want to take a couple going back and forth until you feel some comfort and some ease to this standing position with the pelvis. Good. So now let's come into another movement of the hips, going right, left, while hiking the hips up towards like the armpits. So these are kind of sassy hips. let's start with the right hip first. I like to find this crest on the side of my body. And since we're going to be hiking the hip up, we need to find some extra room to move. So I come up onto the ball of my right foot, onto the toes, and I start to contract my side body, shorten this right side body, and bring that hip up towards the armpit. And then let the hip guide the movement back down. Good. Back up and down. 2 more times. Right hip comes up. You feel this contraction maybe through that lower right side of your back, the side body, and back down. Good. Pause here. Compare the right side to the left side. Maybe the right side is more awake, maybe a little bit warmer. Maybe you feel some discomfort from that movement, but it's not a bad discomfort. It's figuring some stuff out. Let's go to the left side. Start to hike that left hip up as you come onto the ball of your left foot. Back down. Again, hike it up and down. Up, down. Last one. Feel that contraction. Easy does it back down. When you're doing this movement, it's super good for mobility, right? You're getting in this movement of your hips that is oftentimes a little bit muddy. Like you don't really move your hips like this as often as you should. But you also find some stability in the hips. So it's really good for balance. Like if you're trying to balance on your foot, how are you using the side body and stabilizing the hips? So let's go from side to side. Right hip up, lower down and pause. Left hip up, lower down, pause. Again, right, down, pause. Left, down, pause. Coming back into this imaginary bowl of water. How is it feeling now? And then we're going to start to find our way to hands and knees. If it's uncomfortable to be on your hands and knees, you can find a chair or the edge of your bed to place your hands on and take some pressure out of the knees and the wrist. But if you'd like to go onto hands and knees, you can come onto hands and knees. I like to roll my blanket or my mat, so I have a little extra cushion for my wrist, or you can put a blanket under your knees as well. We're gonna come into cat-cow, and so cat-cow is essentially the same movement as arch and flatten, that first movement we did standing. And it's gonna be that tilt forwards and backwards of the hips. And in cat-cow, oftentimes the movement starts from like the middle of the back. But with this pose today, we wanna start the movement with our hips and see how our hips are moving and the spine just follows along. So you might find that you actually get into parts of the spine that you wouldn't otherwise get into. So as you set yourself up for tabletop, get your wrist under your shoulders, knees under the hips. And let's start to come into cow first. So as you come into cow, this is where we're pressing the tailbone up towards the ceiling. The pelvis is gonna roll forward towards our knees. And look how the spine just follows along. And as we go back, same thing, start with the hips. Coming back to neutral, the spine comes along. Again, tailbone up towards the ceiling, hips tilt forward towards the knees, spine follows along. Initiate this back. One more time. So as you go through this movement, you might find spots that are a little bit sticky, a little bit difficult to move. That's okay. Stick with it and see what you can figure out. Let's go the opposite way, coming into our cat. We're gonna tuck the tailbone this time. The hips are gonna roll back and the spine comes up towards the ceiling. Hips come back to neutral, spine follows to neutral. And we come again. Tuck, cat pose. Maybe you drop the head, back. One more time. Now let's go back and forth between cat and cow, starting with the hips. Bringing it up to cat, nice and slow. Going back and forth a couple times. And so the slower you take it with the smaller movement throughout the muscles, you're going to find a little extra space, maybe a space that you haven't been to in a while within the body. So that's super cool. Good, do one more each way. And then we're gonna find ourselves on our backs, resting here. And as you get onto your back, you can hug the knees in towards the chest, maybe rock side to side. Give those hips a little bit of a massage. And send the knees in a circle. Go in one direction. And then send the knees in the opposite direction. Feeling those hips in every direction. And then you can lower the feet to the mat, keeping the knees bent. We're gonna come into a foot press or a bridge, and this is your choice. But we're gonna start to engage the hips and have that be our driving force, as well as engaging that pelvic floor. So you can either place your hands on your hips to feel, or if you need a little extra support, place them on the floor. Just start to press the feet into the floor and engage that pelvic floor. And as I do that, I automatically feel a slight lift to my hips off the floor. Easy does it back down. Relax the pelvic floor. Again, press the feet, engage that pelvic floor. If this feels comfortable, stay here. If you want to start to drive the hips, you can lift the hips, have that pelvic floor be your support, and then bring it back down, release the pelvic floor, release the foot press. One more time, press the feet, engage the pelvic floor, drive the hips up, and then bring it back down. Relax the pelvic floor. Send the legs out long, resting here. As you're resting with your legs out long, lying on your back, you can start to check in with how your pelvic floor, or with how your pelvic bowl is feeling. And even though we're in a little bit of a different orientation, lying on the floor rather than standing, you can still feel and become aware of the hips and how they are situated. So please feel free to rest here on your back as long as you would like. If thank you for practicing with me today. I wish you love, light, and happiness. Namaste.